don't know. I don't know if I just destroyed my audio. I went to sit down and I totally unplugged my audio mixer. But the tail is out. Why is the audio trying to jump? I'm sorry. My gain is so high. So we can do the whispers. But when I went to sit down, I don't know how, but I completely unplugged my mixer. I didn't mean to. And I think that caused absolute chaos for the audio. I'm gonna turn the gain down just a little bit. Okay, is that too chaotic? Sorry. That'll be my first time hearing ASMR, so I'm pretty face. I don't know. I haven't done ASMR before. I think I'm a little bit too close to the microphone. Just a little bit. Actually, my audio monitoring sounds pretty nice right now. New model. We'll call this my comfy model. The comfy ASMR model. My normal model feels a little too formal for being so comfy. Or the idea is being comfy. Listen to this while playing Baseball Zero. Vlogs genuinely peak, really. But I do have another funny discovery today. I got an audio mixer and the 5-fine dynamic microphone. And I was really excited for it. I like the way it sounds. But what was bothering me is that it was really quiet. And what dawned on me is that the mixer I had was positioned for a condenser microphone and not a dynamic microphone that I was using. And that's why it was so quiet. So now I have it swapped over and it sounds so much better. But you won't be able to tell until we do a normal stream that's not such a high gain, which will probably be tomorrow. Please, does that have a meaning? Also, hello. I'm trying not to make a bunch of mouth sounds, because personally, I'm not a fan of it. I know some people do. I don't want to bother. I don't want to be too much of a bother. But for stories we selected today, I have a couple creepypastas to read today. starting a little bit later than I wanted to because I thought it would be really funny to get pop rocks and play with it with the sensitivity up so high. But I couldn't find any pop rocks, so now I'm kind of bummed because I was late and I didn't even accomplish what I wanted. Allow vampires to go into your house. No, it has to be audio. It has to be audible. It's cheating if you use a welcome mat because a welcome mat should welcome good intentions, not a snack. I forgot my ghost friend is still hanging out with me, but that's okay. I think I accidentally closed the window that all my creepypastas at. I've been, I'm being bullied by my Wi-Fi. Shh, fluff the tail. My tail's not fluffy. No fluffy tail. Because my tail is on fire. No fluffy. No fluffy tail. Don't mind me. I just want to listen back a little bit to make sure everything's not too crazy. I'll fluff it. This is a risk I'm willing to take. You're silly. But didn't you see? Don't you see on my other outfit? My clothes are burned because of my tail. It's too hot to fluff the tail. Okay, good. I had to listen back to make sure my microphone was picking up the whispers. But I think we're good. I think we're good. Hi, hello. Can you whisper a little louder? I am listening back. hear what you can hear, and it sounds pretty darn good to me. Never too hot. But if it burns you, it's too hot, don't you think? Don't you think? Does your model have a bald dog? Oh no, no bald dog. No, 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 no. No bald. Maybe one of these days. But no. Alright, I lost my copy pasta. My creepy pastas. Let me find them so we can start reading some creepies. Some creepy pastas today. Yeah. Are you scared? You should be scared. You should be very afraid. Very, very, very afraid. I love it. I can't believe it's already been 20 minutes. I'm currently sitting in the dark. It's very comfy. Let's get the creepy with the stories today. So the first story that I found is called The Last Fire Watcher. I like the game Firewatch. It's another creepypasta. And this was actually written this week. I just heard a car in the background, and I'm really hoping my microphone's not picking that up. Hopefully. Fingers crossed. But if it is, I'm sorry. I forgot to put a visual disclaimer. But our first story is The Last Fire Watcher. I do not tell this story to people anymore because nobody believes the story about the fire lookout tower. Even the friends who were with me that night at the fire lookout tower refused to talk about what happened at the fire lookout tower. It is one of those things where after years, almost convince yourself that the story could not have happened the way you remember it. Every once in a while, something reminds you of the tower, and you realize you never really forgot about the tower. This happened back in 2022 when 6 of us decided to spend a weekend driving around Montana before summer ended. We did not have anything planned for the trip to Montana. We just wanted to get out of town, waste some money on gas for the cars, and enjoy ourselves before everyone got busy with life at home. We had rented a cabin near the mountains outside a place called Phillipsburg. Honestly, the first day was perfect. At the cabin near Phillipsburg, we went fishing, listened to music, joked around, and ate too much junk food. At the cabin near Phillipsburg, nothing strange happened at the cabin. Nothing memorable happened. just stayed. None of this would have happened at the fire lookout tower. On the night after we had been sitting for On the night after we had been sitting around a fire for hours, one of my friends brought up an old story he had heard from his uncle about the fire lookout tower. Apparently, somewhere in the area was an abandoned fire lookout tower that had been closed since the 80s. He said locals avoided the tower because people would occasionally go missing around the tower. Naturally, we thought the story was stupid. One of us said, so basically every creepy story ever about a fire lookout tower. Another friend joked, bro, if I die in an abandoned tower, tell people I got eaten by Bigfoot. We spent 20 minutes making fun of the thing, but eventually curiosity got the better of us. It was not even that we believed the story. We just wanted something to do. It was 10:30 when we loaded back into the trucks and started following directions we had found online to find the tower. The drive to the fire tower was much longer than we expected. Eventually, the pavement turned into gravel. When the gravel turned into dirt, trees covered everything around us. On the way to the fire lookout tower, we did not pass the tower for almost an hour. At one point, one of us said, "Are we sure this tower even exists?" Another replied, "The GPS says 2 miles to the tower." That is when somebody noticed we had service. We had not had service for 30 minutes. Nobody thought much of it. We were in the mountains all the way up. Then one of us looked out the window and quietly said, "Guys, did anyone else see the thing on the way?" Everyone started asking what he meant. He shook his head. "Nothing, probably nothing." We made fun of him for getting scared. That was the end of it. 10 minutes later, we found the fire lookout tower. The fire lookout tower was taller than I expected, rising above the trees like some shadow. The fire lookout tower looked ancient. Rust covered most of the metal and the stairs leading up. The tower looked like they should have collapsed years ago. There were warning signs everywhere, telling people to stay out of the tower. Somebody immediately laughed and said, "Those signs are not stopping anybody." Another friend looked up and said, "Dude, imagine climbing up all the way up." We all laughed. Looking back, I remember one person saying, "You know what is weird? There's no graffiti on the fire lookout tower." He was right. Every abandoned place we'd ever seen had graffiti, broken windows, trash, something. The tower looked untouched, like nobody had been there in decades. We made it halfway up the fire lookout tower before one of us noticed something on the stairs. There was mud on the stairs of the fire lookout tower. Not dried blood. Fresh mud. Like someone had just climbed the fire lookout tower recently. One friend crouched down, pointed. "Look at this on the stairs." The prints led upwards to the stairs of the fire lookout tower. Another friend smiled nervously. "Cool. I guess we're not idiots." something felt wrong about the footprints on the stairs. The prints did not look right. They were too long, not huge, just stretched, like somebody had feet that had somehow been pulled apart. One person joked, maybe Slenderman's got hiking boots at the fire lookout tower. Nobody laughed. When we reached the top of the tower, we found the cabin empty. And at last, we thought it was empty at the top of the fire lookout tower. Discovered everything. Old radios sat on the shelves. Broken chairs were stacked against the walls. One friend sat down and said, "Okay, this view's actually worth the trip to the top." Another took out his phone to record. That was when somebody froze. Who put that there? Sitting at the center of the room was a coffee thermos, brand new, steam rising from the top of the thermos. Everyone went silent. One of us laughed nervously and said, "No." Another whispered, "Someone's here at the top of the tower." Nobody touched the curve of the coffee thermos. Then we heard footsteps, not below us, but at the top of the fire lookout tower. Above us, everyone looked up at the top of the fire lookout tower. There should not have been anything above us. The room we stood in was the point of the fire lookout tower. One friend actually laughed because he thought someone was joking. Very funny. The footsteps continued. Slow, heavy, walking directly over our heads. Forth. Nobody moved at the top of the tower. One person whispered, "There's no floor above us." Another quietly replied, "I know about the top of the tower." Then something knocked the ceiling 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. Nobody spoke. Then from above us, at the top of the fire lookout tower, a voice said, "Finally." It sounded exactly like one of us. This story's really silly. And that was the end of the story. So, grab another story. So this other story is called Psychosis. It leans a little bit towards conspiracy theory, which is fun. get a little bit distracted because I have audio monitoring to hear myself. So it's distracting me a little bit. Oh, you. I keep talking about work. What are you talking about? Honey, not this call. So yeah, our next story. Cycle 6. Sunday. I'm not sure why I'm writing this down on paper and not on my computer. I guess I've just noticed odd things. It's not that I don't trust the computer, I just need to organize my thoughts. I need to get down all the details somewhere objective. Somewhere I know that what I write can't be deleted or changed. Not that that's happened, it's just everything blurs together here, and the fog of memory lends a strange cast to things. I'm starting to feel cramped in this small apartment. Maybe that's the problem. I just had to go and choose the cheapest apartment. The only one in the basement. The lack of windows down here makes day and night seem to slip by seamlessly. I haven't been out in a few days because I've been working on this programming project so intensely. I suppose I just wanted to get it done. Hours of sitting and staring at the monitor can make anyone feel strange. I know, but I don't think that's it. I'm not sure. When I first started to feel like something was odd, I can't even define what it is. Maybe I just haven't talked to anyone in a while. That's the first thing that crept up to me. Everyone I normally talk to online while I program has been idle, or they've simply not logged on at all. My instant messages go unanswered. The last email I got from anybody was a friend saying he talked to me when he got back from the store. And that was yesterday. I'd call with my cell phone, but reception's terrible down here. Yeah, that's it. I just need to call someone. I'm going to go outside. Well, that didn't work so well. As the tingle of fear fades, I'm feeling a little ridiculous for being scared at all. I looked in the mirror before I went out, but I didn't shave. The 2 days stubble have grown. I figured I was just going out for a quick cell phone call. I did change my shirt though, because it was lunchtime, and I guessed that I'd run into at least one person I knew. That didn't end up happening, but I wish it did. When I went out, I opened the door to my small apartment slowly. A small feeling of apprehension had somehow already lodged itself in me for some indefinable reason. I chalked it up to having not spoken to anyone but myself for a day or two. I peered down the deep gray hallway, made dingier by the fact that it was a basement hallway. On one end, a large metal door led to the building's furnace room. It was locked, of course. 2 dreary soda machines stood by. I brought a soda from one on the first day I moved in, but it had a 2-year-old expiration date. I'm fairly sure nobody knows those machines are even down here, or my cheap landlady just didn't care to get it restocked. I closed my door softly and walked the other direction, taking care not to make a sound. I have no idea why I chose to do that, but it was fun, giving in to the strange impulse not to break the droning hum of the soda machines. At least for the moment, I got to the stairwell and took the stairs up to the building's front door. I looked through the heavy door's small square window and received quite the shock. It was definitely not lunchtime. City gloom hung over the dark street outside, and the traffic lights at the intersection and the distant blinked yellow, dim clouds, purple and black from the glow of the city. Nothing moved, save a few sidewalk trees that shifted in the wind. I remember shivering, though I wasn't cold. Maybe it was the wind outside. I could vaguely hear it through the heavy metal door, and I knew it was that unique kind of late night wind, the kind that was constant, cold, and quiet, save for the rhythmic music it made as it passed through countless unseen tree leaves. I decided not to go outside. Instead, I lifted my cell phone to the door's little window and checked the signal meter. The bars filled up the meter, and I smiled. Time to hear someone else's voice. I remember thinking, really, it was such a strange thing to be afraid of nothing. I shook my head, laughing at myself silently. I hit speed dial for my best friend Amy's number and held the phone up to my ear. It rang once, but then it stopped. Nothing happened. I listened to silence for a good 20 seconds, then hung up. I frowned and looked at the signal meter again. Still full. I went to dial her number again, but then my phone rang in my hand, startling me. I put it up to my ear. Hello? I asked, immediately fighting down the small shock of hearing the first spoken voice in days. Even if it was my own, I had gotten used to the droning hum of the building's inner workings, my computer, and the soda machines in the hallway. There was no response to my greeting at first, but then finally, a voice came. My nose whistled. Hey, said a clear male voice, obviously of college age, like me. Who's this? John, I replied, confused. Oh, sorry. Wrong number, he replied, and hung up. I lowered the phone slowly and leaned against the thick brick wall of the stairwell. That was strange. It looked like my received call list, but the number was unfamiliar. Before I could think on it further, the phone loudly rang, shocking me yet again. This time, I looked at the seller before I answered it. It was another unfamiliar number. This time, I held the phone up to my ear, but said nothing. Sorry, my nose got all clogged up. Sorry. Yoshi. This time, I looked at the caller before I answered. It was another unfamiliar number. This time, I held the phone up to my ear but said nothing. I heard nothing but the general background noise of a phone. Then a familiar voice broke my tension. John was a single word. It was Amy's voice. I breathed out a sigh of relief. Hey, it's you, I whispered. Who else would it be? She responded. Oh, the number. I'm at a party on 7th Street, and my phone died just as you called me. This is someone else's phone, obviously. Okay, I said. Where are you? She asked. My eyes glanced over the drab, whitewash cylinder block walls and the heavy metal door with its small window. At my building, I sighed, just feeling cooped up. I didn't realize it was so late. You should come here, she said, laughing. Nah, I don't feel like looking for some strange place by myself in the middle of the night, I said, looking out the window at the silent, windy street that secretly scared me. Just a tiny bit. I think I'm just going to keep working or go to bed. Nonsense, she replied. I can come get you. Your building is close to 7th Street, right? How drunk are you? I asked lightheartedly. You know where I live. Oh, of course, she said abruptly. I guess I can't get there by walking, huh? You could if you wanted to waste half an hour, I told her. Right. Okay, have to go. Good luck with your work. I lowered the phone once more, looked at the numbers, flash as the call ended. Then the droning silence suddenly reasserted itself into my ears. The two strange calls and the eerie street outside just drove home my aloneness in this empty stairwell. Perhaps from having seen too many scary movies, I had the sudden inexplicable idea that something could look in the door's window and see some sort of horrible entity that hovered at the edge of aloneness, just waiting to creep up on unsuspecting people that strayed far from other human beings. I knew the fear was irrational, but nobody else was around, so I looked down the stairs, ran down the hallway into my room, and closed the door as swiftly as I could, while still staying silent. Like I said, I felt a little ridiculous for being scared of nothing. The fear has already faded. Writing this down helps a lot. It makes me realize that nothing is wrong. It filters out half-formed thoughts and fears and leaves only cold, hard facts. It's late. I got a call from a wrong number, and Amy's phone died. So she called me back from another number. Nothing strange is happening. Still, there was something a little off about that conversation. I know it could have just been the alcohol, she said, or it was even that. Her voice seemed off to me. Or was it? Yes, that was it. I didn't realize until this moment, writing these things down, at a party, but I only heard silence in the background. Of course, that doesn't mean anything in particular, as she could have just gone outside to make the call. No, that couldn't be it either. I didn't hear the wind. I need to see if the wind is still blowing. Monday. I forgot to finish writing last night. I'm not sure what I expected to see when I ran up the stairwell and looked out the heavy metal door last night. I'm feeling ridiculous. Last night's fear seems hazy and unreasonable to me now. I can't wait to go into the sunlight. I'm going to check my email, shave, shower, and finally get out of here. Wait, I think I heard something. Thank you for the heartbeat. It was thunder. That whole sunlight and fresh air thing didn't help. I went out into the stairwell and up the stairs, only to find disappointment. The heavy metal door's little window showed only flowing water as torrential rain slammed against it. Only a very dim, gloomy light filtered in through the rain, but at least I knew it was daytime. Even if it was a gray, sickly, wet day, I tried looking out the window and waiting for lightning to eliminate the gloom. But the rain was too heavy, and I couldn't make out anything more than vague, weird shapes moving at odd angles and the waves washing down the window. Disappointed, I turned around, but I didn't want to go back to my room. Instead, I wandered further up the stairs, past the first floor and the second. The stairs ended at the third floor, the highest floor in the building. I looked through the glass and ran up the other wall of the stairwell, but it was that warped, thick kind of scattered light. Not that there was much to see through the rain to begin with. I opened the stairwell door and wandered down the hallway. The 10 or so thick wooden doors, painted blue a long time ago, were all closed. I listened as I walked, but it was the middle of the day, so I wasn't surprised that I heard nothing but the rain outside. As I stood there in the dim hallway listening to the rain, I had the strange fleeting impression that the windows I had the strange fleeting impression that the doors were standing like silent granite. Monoliths erected by some ancient forgotten civilization for some unfathomable guardian purpose. Lightning flashed, and I could have sworn that, just for a moment, the old green and blue would look like it was rough stone. I laughed at myself for letting my imagination get the best of me. But then it occurred to me that the dim gloom and lightning there was a window somewhere in the hallway. A vague memory surfaced, and I suddenly recalled that the third floor had an alcove and an inside window halfway down the floor's hallway. Excited to look out into the rain and possibly see another human being, I quickly walked over to the alcove. Finding the large thin glass window, rain washed down it as with the front door's window. But I could open this one. I reached out a hand to slide it open, but I hesitated. I had the strangest feeling that if I opened that window, I would see something absolutely horrifying on the other side. Everything's been so odd lately, so I came up with a plan, and I came back here to get what I needed. I don't seriously think anything will come of it, but I'm bored. It's raining, and I'm going stir crazy. I came back to get my webcam. The cord isn't long enough to reach the third floor by any means, so instead, I'm going to hide it between the two soda machines in the dark end of my basement hallway. Run the wire along the wall and under my door, and put black duct tape over the wire to blend it in with the black plastic strip that runs along the base of the hallway's walls. I know this is silly, but I don't have anything better to do. Well, nothing happened. I propped open the hallway to the stairwell door, steeling myself, and flung the heavy front door wide open and ran like hell down the stairs to my room and slammed the door. I watched the webcam on my computer intently, seeing the hallway outside my door and most of the stairwell. I'm watching it right now, and I don't see anything interesting. It's just the camera's position was different, so that I could see out the front door. Hey, somebody's online. I got an older, less functional webcam that I had in my closet to video chat with my friend online. I couldn't really explain to him why I wanted to video chat, but it felt good to see another person's face. He couldn't talk very long, and we didn't talk about anything meaningful, but I feel much better. My strange fear has almost passed. I would feel completely better, but there was something odd about our conversation. I know that I've said everything has seemed odd, but still, he was very vague in his responses. I can't recall one specific thing that he said, no particular name or places or event, but he did ask for my email address to keep in touch. Wait, I just got an email. I'm about to go out. Just got an email from Amy that asked me to meet her for dinner at the place we usually go to. I do love pizza, and I've just been eating random food from my poorly stocked fridge for days, so I can't wait. Again, I feel ridiculous about the odd couple of days I've been having. I should destroy this journal when I get back. Oh, another email. Oh my god, I almost left the email and opened the door. I almost opened the door, but I read the email first. It was from a friend I hadn't heard from in a long time, and it was sent to a huge number of emails that must have been every person he had saved in his address list. It had no subject, and it said simply, "Seen with your own eyes, don't trust them." What the hell was that supposed to mean? The words shook me, and I keep going over and over them. Is it a desperate email sent just as something happened? The words are obviously cut off without finishing. On any other day, I would have dismissed this as spam from a computer virus or something. But the words, "seen with your own eyes," I can't help but read over this journal and think back to the last few days and realize that I have not seen another person with my own eyes or talked to another person face to face. The webcam conversation with my friend was so strange, so vague, so eerie. Now that I think about it, Was it eerie? Or is it the fear clouding my memory? My mind toys with the progression of events I've written here, pointing out that I have not been presented with one single fact that I did not specifically give out unsuspectingly. The random wrong number that got my name, the subsequent strange return call from Amy, the friend that asked for my email address. I messaged him first, then I saw him online. And then I got my first email a few minutes after that conversation. Oh my god, that phone call with Amy. I said over the phone that I was within half an hour's walk of 7th Street. They know I'm near there. What if they're trying to find me? Where is everyone else? Why haven't I seen or heard of anyone else in days? No, no. This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. I need to calm down. This madness needs to end. I don't know what to think. I ran about my apartment furiously, holding my cell phone up to every corner to see if it got a signal through the heavy walls. Finally, in the tiny bathroom near one ceiling corner, I got a single bar. Holding my phone there, I sent a text message to every number in my list, not wanting to betray anything about my unfounded fears. I simply said, "Seen anyone face to face lately?" At that point, I just wanted any reply back. I didn't care what the reply was, or if I embarrassed myself. I tried to call someone a few times, but I couldn't get my head up high enough. And if I brought my cell phone down even an inch, I lost signal. Then I remembered the computer. I rushed over to it, instant messaging everyone online. Most were idle or away from their computer. Nobody replied. My messages grew more frantic, and I started telling people where I was and to stop by in person for a host of barely passable reasons. I didn't care about anything at that point. I just needed to see another person. I also tore apart my apartment looking for something that I might have missed, some way to contact another human being without opening the door. I know it's crazy. I know it's unfounded. But what if? I just need to be sure. I taped the phone to the ceiling just in case. That's Monday. Thank you for the heartbeat. It's not scary. Also, hi, typing. Welcome in. I feel like I read that last part really fast. I had to catch my breath. Tuesday. The phone rang. Exhausted from last night's rampage, I must have fallen asleep. I woke up to the phone ringing and ran into the bathroom, stood on the toilet, and flipped open the phone taped to the ceiling. It was Amy, and I feel so much better. She was really worried about me, and apparently had been trying to contact me since the last time I talked to her. She's coming over now, and yes, she knows where I am without me telling her. I feel so embarrassed. I'm definitely throwing this journal away before anyone sees it. I don't even know why I'm writing in it now. Maybe it's just because it's the only communication I've had since God knows when. I look like hell too. I looked in the mirror before I came back in here. My eyes are sunken, my stubble is thicker, and I just look generally unhealthy. My apartment is trashed, but I'm not going to clean it up. I think I need someone else to see what I've been through. These past few days have not been normal. I'm not one to imagine things. I know I have been the victim of extreme probability. I've probably missed seeing another person a dozen times. I just happened to go out when it was late at night or in the middle of the day when everyone was gone. Everything's perfectly fine. I know this now. Plus, I found something in the closet last night that has helped me tremendously. The television. I set it up just before I wrote this, and it's in the background. Television has always been an escape for me, and it reminds me that there's a world beyond these dingy brick walls. I'm glad Amy's the only one that responded to me after last night's frantic pestering of everyone I could contact. She's been my best friend for years. She doesn't know it, but I count the day that I met her among one of the few moments of true happiness in my life. I remember that warm summer day fondly. It seems a different reality from this dark, rainy, lonely place. I feel like I spent days sitting in that playground, much too old to play, just talking with her and hanging around, doing nothing at all. I still feel like I can go back to that moment sometimes. It reminds me that this damn place is not all there is. Finally, a knock at the door. I thought it was odd that I couldn't see her through the camera. I hid between the two soda machines. I figured that it was bad positioning, like when I couldn't see out the front door. I should have known. I should have known after the knock. I yelled through the door jokingly that I had a camera between soda machines because I was embarrassed myself that I had taken this paranoia so far. After I did that, I saw her image walk over to the camera and look down at it. She smiled and waved. Hey, she said it to the camera brightly, giving it a wry look. It's weird, I know. I said it to the mic attached to my computer. I've had a weird few days. Must have, she replied. Open the door, John. I hesitated. How can I be sure? Hey, humor me a second here. I told her through the mic. Tell me one thing about us. Just prove to me you're you. She gave the camera a weird look. Alright, she said slowly, thinking. We met randomly at a playground when we were both way too old to be there. I sighed deeply as reality returned and fear faded. God, I've been so ridiculous. Of course, it was Amy. That day wasn't anywhere in the world except in my memory. I'd never even mentioned to anyone, not out of embarrassment, but out of a strange secret nostalgia and a longing for those days to return. If there was some unknown force at work trying to trick me as I feared, there was no way they could know about that day. All right, I'll explain everything, I told her. Be right there. ran to my small bathroom and fixed my hair as best I could. I looked like hell, but she would understand. Snickering at my own believable behavior and the mess I'd made of the place, I walked to the door. I put my hand on the doorknob, gave the mess one last look. So ridiculous, I thought. My ears traced over the half-eaten food lying on the ground, the overflowing trash bin, and the bin I tipped to the side looking for God knows what. I almost looked at the door and opened it, but my eyes fell on one last thing, the old wed gun, the one I used for that eerie, vacant chat with my friend. Its silent black sphere lay half-heartedly. Its silent black sphere lay haphazardly tossed to the side, its blends pointed at the table where this journal lay. An overwhelming terror took me as I realized that if something could see me through the camera, it would have seen what I just wrote about that day. I asked her for any one thing about us, and she chose the only thing in the world that I thought they or it didn't know. But it did. It did know. It could have been watching me the whole time. So you're a good boy. You're a good boy. Yoshi, Yoshi, good boy. I didn't open the door. I screamed. I screamed in uncontrollable terror. I stomped on the old webcam on the floor. The door shook. The doorknob tried to turn, but I didn't hear Amy's voice through the door. Was the basement door made to keep out drafts too thick, or was Amy not outside? What could have been trying to get in? If not her, what the hell was out there? I saw her on my computer through the camera outside. I heard her on the speakers through the camera outside. But was it real? How can I know? She's gone now. I screamed and shouted for help. I piled up everything in my apartment against the front door. And that was Tuesday. At first, I was feeling the story is going on too long, but I'm actually kind of sucked in. Friday. At least I think it's Friday. I broke everything electronic. I smashed my computer to pieces. Every single thing on there could have been accessed by network access, or worse, altered. I'm a programmer. I know every little piece of information I gave out since it started. My name, my email, my location. None of it came back from outside until I gave it out. I've been going over and over what I wrote. I've been pacing back and forth, alternating between stark terror and overpowering disbelief. Sometimes I'm absolutely certain some phantom entity is dead set on the simple goal of getting me to go outside. Back to the beginning, with the phone call with Amy. She was effectively asking me to open the door and go outside. I keep running through it in my head. One point of view says I've acted like a madman, and all of this is the extreme convergence of probability. Never going outside at the right time by pure luck. Never seeing another person by pure chance, getting a random nonsense email from some computer virus at just the right time. The other point of view says that extreme convergence of probability is the reason that whatever's out there hasn't got me already. I keep thinking I never opened the window on the third floor. I never opened the front door until that incredibly stupid stunt with the hidden camera, after which I ran straight to my room and slammed the door. I haven't opened my own solid door since I flung open the front door of the building. Whatever's out there, if anything's out there, never made an appearance in the building before I opened the front door. Maybe the reason it wasn't in the building already was that it was elsewhere, getting everyone else. And then it waited until I betrayed my existence by trying to call Amy, a call which didn't work until it called me and asked me my name. Terror literally overwhelms me every time I try to fit the pieces of this nightmare together. Then email, short, cut off. Was it from someone trying to get word out? Some friendly voice desperately trying to warn me before it came. Seen with my own eyes, don't trust them. Exactly what I've been so suspicious of. It could have been masterful control of all things electronic, practicing its insidious deception to trick me into coming outside. Why can't it get in? It knocked on the door. It must have some solid presence. The door, the image of those doors in the upper hallway as guardian monoliths flash back into my mind every time I trace this path of thoughts. If there is something phantom trying to get me to go outside, maybe it can't get through doors. I keep thinking back over all the books I've read or movies I've seen, trying to generate some explanation for this. Doors have always been such instance of human imagination, always seen as wards or portals of special importance, or perhaps the door is just too thick. I know that I couldn't bash through any of the doors in this building, let alone the heavy basement ones. Aside from that, the real question is, why does it even want me? If it just wanted to kill me, it can do it any other number of ways, including just waiting for me to starve to death. What if it doesn't want to kill me? What if it's some far more horrific fate in store for me? God, what can I do to escape this nightmare? A knock on the door. I told the people on the other side of the door I needed a minute to think and I'll come out. I'm really just writing this down so I can figure out what to do. At least this time, I heard their voices, my paranoia. And yes, I recognize I'm being paranoid. As me thinking all sorts of ways that their voices could be faked electronically. There could be nothing but speakers outside simulating human voices. Did it really take them 3 days to come talk to me? Amy is supposedly out there, along with 2 policemen and a psychiatrist. Maybe it took them 3 days to think of what to say to me. The psychiatrist's claim could be very convincing if I decided to think this has all been a crazy misunderstanding and not some entity trying to trick me into opening the door. The psychiatrist had an older voice, authoritarian, I have something called cyberpsychosis, and I'm just one of a nationwide epidemic of thousands of people having breakdowns triggered by suggested email that got through somehow. I swear he said it got through somehow. I think he means spread throughout the country inexplicably. But I'm incredibly suspicious that the entity slipped up and revealed something. He said I am part of a wave of emergent behavior, that a lot of other people are having the same problem with the same fears, even though we've never communicated. That neatly explains a strange email about eyes that I got. I didn't get the original triggering email. I got a descendant of it. My friend could have broken down to and tried to warn everyone he knew against his paranoid fears. That's how the problem spreads. The psychiatrist claims I could have spread it too, with my texts and instant messages online to everybody I knew. One of these people might be melting down right now after being triggered by something I sent them, something they might interpret any way they want, something like a text saying, "Seen anyone face to face lately?" The psychiatrist told me that he didn't want to lose another one, that people like me are intelligent, and that's our downfall. We draw connections so well that we draw them, even when they shouldn't be there. He said it's easy to get caught up in paranoia in our fast-paced world, a constantly changing place where more and more of our interaction is simulated. I have to give him one thing. It's a great explanation. It neatly explains everything. It perfectly explains everything. In fact, I have every reason to shake off this nightmarish fear that something, or consciousness, or being out there wants me to open the door so it can capture me for some horrible fate worse than death. It would be foolish, after hearing that explanation, to stay in here until I starve to death just to spite the entity that might have got everything else. It would be foolish to think that, after hearing that explanation, I might be one of the last people left alive in an empty world, hiding in my secure basement room, spitting some unthinkable deceptive entity just by refusing to be captured. It's a perfect explanation for every single thing I've seen or heard, and I have every reason in the world to let all of my fears go and open the door, and that's exactly why I'm not going to. Hi, twin. Okay, a few more paragraphs. How can I be sure? How can I know what's real and what's deception? All of these damn things with their wires and their signals that originate from some unseen origin. They're not real. I can't be sure. Signals through a camera, faked video, deceptive phone calls, emails, even the television lying broken on the floor. How can I possibly know it's real? It's just signals, waves, light, the door. It's bashing on the door. It's trying to get in. What insane mechanical Contrivous could it be using to simulate the sound of men attacking the heavy wood so well? At least, I finally see it with my own eyes. There's nothing left in here for it to deceive me with. I've ripped apart everything else. It can't deceive my eyes, can it? Seen with your own eyes, don't trust what they. Wait, was that desperate message telling me to trust my eyes? Or warning me about my eyes, too? Oh, God. What difference between a camera and my eyes? They both turn light into electrical signals. They are the same. I can't be deceived. I have to be sure. I have to be sure. They don't know. I calmly asked for a paper and pen, day in and day out, until finally he gave them to me. Not that it matters. What am I going to do? Poke my eyes out? The bandages feel like a part of me now. The pain is gone. I figured this would be one of my last chances to write legibly, as without my sight to correct mistakes, my hands will slowly forget the motions involved. This is a sort of self-indulgence. This writing is a relic of another time, because I'm certain everyone left in the world is dead, or something far worse. I sit against the padded wall day in and day out. The entity brings me food and water. It masks itself as a kind of nurse, as an unsympathetic doctor. I think it knows that my hearing has sharpened considerably now that I live in darkness. It fakes conversations in the hallways, on the off chance that I might overhear. One of the nurses talks about having a baby soon. One of the doctors lost his wife in a car accident. None of it matters. None of it is real. None of it gets to me. Not like she does. That's not the worst part. The part I almost can't handle. The thing comes to me, masquerading as Amy. Its recreation is perfect. It sounds exactly like her. It even produces a reasonable facade of tears that it makes me feel like its lifelike cheeks. When it first dragged me here, it told me all the things I wanted to hear. It told me that she loved me, that she'd always loved me, that it didn't understand why I did this, that we could still have a life together if only I would stop insisting that I was being deceived. It wanted me to believe. No, it needed me to believe she was real. I almost fell for it. I really did. I doubted myself for the longest time. In the end, though, it was all too perfect, too flawless, and too real. The false game used to come every day, and then every week, and finally stopped coming altogether. But I don't think the entity will give up. I think the waiting game is just another one of its gambits. I will resist it for the rest of my life if I have to. I don't know what happened to the rest of the world, but I do know that this thing needs me to fall for its deceptions. If it needs that, then maybe, just maybe, I am a thorn in its agenda. Maybe Amy is still alive out there somewhere, kept alive only by my will to resist the deceiver. I hold on to that hope, rocking back and forth in my cell to pass the time. I will never give in. I will never break. I am a hero. The doctor read the paper the patient had scribbled on. It was barely readable, written in a shaky script of one who could not see. He wanted to smile at the man's steadfast resolve, a reminder of human will to survive. but he knew that the patient was completely delusional. After all, the sane man would have fallen for the deception long ago. The doctor wanted to smile. He wanted to whisper words of encouragement to the delusional man. He wanted to scream, but the nerve filaments wrapped around his head and his eyes made him do otherwise. His body walked into the cell like a puppet and told the patient once more that he was wrong and that there was nobody trying to deceive him. But yes, we were telling a story. Also, hello, welcome. And that was Psychosis. I actually liked that one. Yes, 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 yes. Yes, 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 yes. My gain is so high, it scares me. I'm a little bummed I couldn't find pop rocks to try out on stream today. Typically, they would be like everywhere. I don't know why. They not sell pop rocks anymore. See, sorry, I got distracted by a message. Okay, we're good. I think it's kind of funny how many what's going on messages popped up. Thank you for the live. Oh, let me see. I'm gonna find a script. I think that'd be fun. Yosh, 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 yosh. Are you kidding every time I see you smiling? That's silly. You're silly, silly. Silly Billy. I'm hoping my keyboard isn't too loud. I pull this. Yosh, 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 yosh. who mentioned a wolf, and I get a werewolf script popped up in my thing. Gosh. That's what I wanted. I have too many windows open. Far too many. Pause that. Oh, that's a long script. Never mind. That's not the right one. I did. So, hello. So this other story is called I Found a Letter from My Stalker. Oh, I'm your stalker now. I'm hiding in your doorway watching you sleep. Oh, it's not creepy. It's not creepy if you don't make it creepy, I promise. Yeah. Where'd you go? I missed it. I lost it. I'm always losing my windows. I don't mean to. I found it. I did it. I would like it box because I did it. Hi, welcome. I found a letter from my stalker. Is our creepypasta now? I found this note nailed onto a tree on my front lawn. I really don't know how to describe it. I'll just let you read it yourself. I saw you today. It was your birthday. You didn't see me. You hardly ever do these days. Your skin looks so nice and healthy. And your eyes, they were the most beautiful I'd ever seen them. You've grown so much. I remember how different you used to look when you were younger. I remember the day I first met you. It was 4 years ago. I was sitting at my desk, head down, listening to the teacher rattle off names for attendance. The teacher called out a name new student. The teacher didn't pause for a second, just continued calling out name after name. I turned my head to where the voice had come from. I saw you, a pale thing, so thin. Your eyes were so red, and a seat that should have been empty. We saw the fireflies flying around you, flickering, dozens of them, never straying far from you. I saw them going through you and coming out through your skin, like you were a mist to them. Can you believe? I thought you were a ghost. No one else seemed to acknowledge the new stranger sitting at the back of the class after class. Hour after hour passed as I waited for something to happen, for someone to notice you, for you to leave, for you to let out a ghoulish scream and claw at me. Like in the horror story I was certain I was in, but nothing happened. Teachers came and went. My classmates laughed and slept, and you just sat there. The bell rang for recess. The other kids ran to their Monday duties for the day, telling me and you together in the empty classroom. You stood up and pulled a chair from the desk next to you, making it face your desk. You turned your head to me and spoke. Well, you're slow today. Come on, ask me your questions. I will go. I don't know why I didn't run away screaming at that moment. Probably would have turned out better for me in the wrong one, but let's not speculate. I guess at that point in my life, I was pretty bloody lonely. I figured there was only a 50-50 chance you'd eat me and the other 50 kids. I figured there was only a 50-50 chance you'd eat me, and the other 50 was that someone wanted to talk to me. Kid priorities don't make sense to me either these days. So I went along with the flow. I walked over to your desk, sat down on the chair you pulled up for me, and asked my question. What were you? You told me you didn't know. You said that once you were a child just like me, with parents and friends, you used to go to the same school as me. Then one day, one ordinary day, when you were 10, you just woke up and you were like this, covered in fireflies, and no one could remember you the moment they concentrated on anything else. No one, not even your parents. You told me how I noticed you every day, how I think of you until recess every day, how I'd come to you every day, how we would talk every day, how we would meet for the first time for the last 3 years, and how I'd forget the instant I walked out of the room, how everyone would forget you, how the fireflies would make them, how for the last 3 years you'd been low. Your story was very hard to believe, so I didn't. I asked what reality prank show I was on. You looked, well, unimpressed, and asked me to continue telling my story. I was caught off guard by the non-sequitur. You said last time I was here, I was telling you a story, a horror story about a haunted house. As you detailed the story, goosebumps pricked the top of my skin. It was a story I'd been making up in my head, a story I hadn't At that moment, a million reactions were open to me, all simultaneously adequate and inadequate. But the only thing that seemed proper was to finish the story for you. So I did. Halfway through, you interrupted me to ask if my mother had recovered from her sickness yet. I had to shake my head, a bit ashamed at the fact that I shared this private matter to a stranger. The story ended a few minutes before recess. My next class was in another room. You told me not to go. Your steadiness took me back. You seemed so accepting of your fate, like you'd already gotten used to the idea of being forgotten forever. I was a kid back then. I wasn't a particularly smart kid, and I was probably on the onset of a crush. You can excuse what I did next as an example of my childhood stupidity. I grabbed my scissors, pressed it against my arm skin, and dug in. As it drew blood, I pushed it forwards till the cut formed the shape that I wanted. Letter by letter, I carved your name into my arm. Just so you know, I don't regret that. Don't get me wrong. Kid power might have made me do it. But it sure as hell didn't make the pain go away. It was one of the most painful experiences of my life. But even then, as a kid, I thought what was happening to you was unfair. I remember how your eyes looked when you saw that. The confusion. How strange it was for you that anyone would want to remember. I remember that look so clearly. When I woke up the next day, I saw your name on my arm. I remember you. I didn't forget that day for the first time. We had a conversation that wasn't so one-sided. You said no one had ever done anything like that before and suggested I might have a mental illness. I won't deny it. I drew a little blood as we talked. A creepy thought came into my head. Did you prefer it when I didn't remember? That night, I was sitting up on my bed, staring at your name on my arm, wondering if I should cover it up so I couldn't see it and give you back your privacy. And I heard a crash. I looked up to see my bedroom mirror shattered and dirty. I looked up to see my bedroom window shattered and a dirty rock on my floor. I looked up out of the cracked window to see a dark figure on my lawn. You were outside yelling about how we should hang out. It took me a while to get used to how bad you were at talking to people. Years without practice made you a bit rusty. That was all right. We had a lot of time. For the next 2 years, we spent most of our free time together. Most of the time, we talked. You tell me an aspect of your life and how you lived. You still stayed in your old house. Your parents never noticed the food that had gone missing, never noticed the extra room, or that you'd stolen the extra tree, that you'd stolen the extra keys. One night, I confided in you that I was beginning to think you were part of my imagination, Fight Club style. After all, what could you do to me that I couldn't do to myself? You spent the next month or so trying to leave bite marks on my ear or neck to prove a point. I still have a few scars on my ear, so I guess you did. Looking back, I could see the warning signs even then. Your skin seemed to get worse and worse, paler and paler, and you rubbed your eyes raw. It was winter. We had our wake-up call. The morning began like any other. I woke up, brushed my teeth, and started searching for clothes to wear. It was a winter morning, and my room was dark, so I didn't see your name on my arm. The cold sent shivers through my body and pulled out a long sleeve jacket. A small bell rang in my head. Don't you usually roll your sleeves up? Yeah, and why did I? That was annoying. I finished tidying up and headed to school on the school bus. It felt oddly content, like something I'd been worrying about had just disappeared. I walked up the school stairs, down the hall, through my classroom door, and sat down at my desk. The same feeling of a burden forgotten hounded my mind. What was I forgetting? When recess came, I just sat back at my desk when my classmates ran out. It felt like a ritual, but I didn't know what for. I was contemplating just walking out to join them when I heard it. It was something small in the wind, like a whisper. It came over and over. It sounded like my name. I knew this was strange. This was worth my attention. But I felt oddly calm. Everything would be all right. Everything would be fine. Just ignore it. I sat there at my desk, my mind a war zone between two conflicting, contradictory voices when I felt a force tugging on my sleeve. The moment I noticed this, my jacket sleeve tore open. I saw your name on my arm, and then your hand that ripped my jacket open. You've been yelling at me for over 20 minutes. I think that was the moment we realized how on edge our friendship really was. One accident away from complete erasure. We spent most of the next year in the town library together, trying to find out what the fireflies were. It wasn't really a problem for me. Because of my mother's treatment, my family couldn't afford to go on any trips. My family couldn't. I reread it. Thank you for the follow. It wasn't really a problem for me because of my mother's treatment. My family couldn't afford to go on any trips, and our house didn't have heating anymore. So I was happy to spend my time with you. Trying to find information was a puzzle in of itself. After all, how would I read about people I couldn't remember? And how would you find out who was special when no one could even remember thinking about them to record them? We found our old family trees and records individually. We'd write down the name of everyone in the book on due lists, and then we would compare. The names I hadn't remembered to write down, but you had, would come into focus. They were names who were under the curse of the fireflies. We compiled a list of suspicious books we thought could help us because they were written by or were about people we were searching for. I read the books with the list of names side by side, reading it again for every page on the book. You scoured the internet and the library computers on the lookout for articles about the people. Our search would lead us to the first glimpse we got of what was really happening to you. It was late night when you found the picture. I was a bit drowsy at the time, and almost about to nod off when I heard a sharp intake of breath. I turned to see you standing up, pointing at the screen. I didn't see anything. Well, anything noteworthy. On the screen was a picture of a clearing somewhere in the woods. You held up your piece of paper where you'd marked out 2 names: Susie Appleby Regan, 13, Terry Appleby Regan, 12, siblings. For a moment, I saw the paper and screen side by side, and then I saw them, 2 figures emerging from the woods towards the camera. They were almost humanoid, with the exception of their limbs, which stretched to nightmarish proportions. Their blank white skin was that of a pure albino, and looked more like tree bark than anything you'd expect to find in a mammal. A cloud of fireflies surrounded the duo. The shorter one looked emaciated. I could see their rib cages, around which their eyes, God, their eyes, so small, so red. The taller one, with his white hair, didn't look alive anymore. They were little more than skin wrapped around a skeleton. Fireflies swarmed out of the pair's empty eye sockets. Both reached for the cameraman. I looked at the article surrounding the picture. It was a blog post by a hiker 20 years after the last mention of the 2 kids. The picture was a mystery to the cameraman as well. He had been wanting to go to the woods pictured for a while now, but he never actually remembered going there. The picture had just appeared on his camera one day, out of the blue. For a moment, I looked at your face, your thin, pale face with those red, veined eyes. Would that be you when my scar faded? Just a walking horror I'd glimpse and then forget. We worked through our reading list as much faster pace, starting from that moment. Maybe we should have gone slower. At least every book, every website we left untouched promised hope. The books that we finished and tossed aside promised nothing but the clearing in the woods as one's future. As we tossed aside a lot of books, I believe I tore through 3/4 of my reading list before I stumbled across the journal. Oh God, that horrible, horrible journal. The journal used to belong to a mental patient named Joey, who claimed to be a serial killer. He was locked up in an asylum when the police discovered his supposed victims never existed. He was diagnosed with the need for attention and shoved away. They should have electrocuted him. They should have fried him until his flesh melted and his hair burned. In the journal, he talked about how he carried out his killings. He knew things, bizarre and disturbing things no one else knew. He knew of strange creatures that lived in the woods. Of them, his favorites were the fireflies. I'm not going to tell you how he summoned those things. I trust you. I trust you more than anyone. But a thing like this belongs to the ground more than it ever will to the human mind. In the end, it's sufficient to know that these kind of things were not fireflies. Joey would start his ritual by taking a kid, any kid, anyone he pleased. He would take them at any time in the dead of night from their homes or in broad daylight from in front of their yards. It didn't matter if he was seen. He'd take them to his house and drag them inside. Usually an Amber Alert came up at that point. He didn't care, like I said. It wouldn't matter soon. He'd drag them to a special room in his house where the fireflies would come and latch on most of them, hacksaw, kitchen knife, anything would work. He detailed a large pit of bodies he kept in the wood, swarming with bugs. One day, I guess, he got bored of that too, so he went right to the police station and turned himself in. Not on account of guilt, no, no, no. He just wanted someone to know about the stuff he was doing. Sick bastard. Oh, don't get the wrong idea. He never stopped killing kids. The asylum doors didn't stop him from doing as he liked. It just made him improvise. He made a new way. He modified the flies so they could survive without a host, just in a dormant state. When a child, he specified the age, would approach the swarm, it would latch on and begin its effect. Over the years, the child would warp horribly into things we saw in the woods. I wish I could hate him in peace. I wish I could say the world owed him nothing, but that wouldn't be true. He detailed a way out. On the final page, there was an exact explanation on how to get rid of the fireflies. You must have seen something on my face, because at that moment, you asked if I found anything. I said no and closed the book. A few minutes later, you shut down the computer. You picked up the last book and went through it yourself. When you reached the end cover, you tossed it aside. I asked what we should do now. You said it was all right. I could go home. We'd talk about it in the morning. I stood up and walked past the shelves of books. I headed for the library entrance, but stopped right outside the door and waited until I heard the sniffling sounds. I sneaked back to our table, where you were quietly sobbing. You had your head in your hands. I sat back down as you raised your eyes to me. You said you wish you never met me, how happy you were when you had nothing to lose, how I ruined your life. You never really got better until talking to people. That was the worst love confession I'd ever heard. I remember how we kissed that night. I remember your hands gripping my hair. I remember that kiss. I wish it could have been just a kiss. I'm sorry I ruined that moment when my arms were around you. I was close enough to steal a firefly without you noticing. I remember holding the firefly in my hand. I remember how it struggled until it didn't, until it was a part of me. The firefly shifted. It came over to me and left you. Rumble VT, thank you for the raid. Welcome in, raiders. Welcome. Yoshi, good raid. I'm listening to sleep super late. Good. Thank you for the raid. I hope you had a good stream. Get some good sleeps. Make sure you drink your water. Drink water, have a snack, and get some good sleep. The firefly shifted. They came over to me and left you. I remember the familiar look in your eyes, the confusion. I never wanted to see that confusion in your eyes again. You deserve to be loved. You deserve to know that. I wasn't really living anyways. You reached out for me. I pulled away as the last lights of recognition faded from your eyes, and then you were just staring at a stranger, walking away to a crowd of strangers. That was a year ago. You've got much better since then. You have so many friends now. You also look so much healthier. I haven't been as fortunate. My skin's gotten a lot paler, and my eyes hurt all the time now. I couldn't go to school like you did all those years. I haven't wasted my time, though. I found Joey's pit. The bodies. There were so many bodies. There's a grave for those children now. Without me, my mom could afford her surgery. She looked so happy. Just yesterday, I saw her playing with my baby brother. I saw you crying yesterday. You were with your friends, laughing. For a brief moment, your eyes met mine, and then they were so wet. I think I'm going away for good. I think you're not going to be happy if I stick around. I'm so happy I met you, even if you don't remember me. And that's the note. Sometimes I go through depressive episodes. I feel so lonely, even with my friends. I don't know what's going through my head during these times, but sometimes I'd end up in a bathtub, knife in my hands. Until now, I thought it was gutting, but I wasn't. These cuts, they're letters. I've been carving a name to my arm. And that's, I found a letter from my stalker. It kind of feels a little bit like, I'm drawing a blank of the name of the anime. In the town where only I have disappeared. What's the other name? I have to find it. I'm drawing a blank of the anime. Erased, that's the name. Reminds me of Erased, kind of. But a little bit darker. Also, Erased is a great anime. There we go. Reading into an ASMR stream from Elder Scrolls is a wild choice. It still sounds fun. See. Let me snag another story we can read. Yeah. Yes. Wait, hi Echo. Welcome, welcome. Welcome in. How are you? Let me see. Actually, I've been talking. I need a drink. listening. That's good. That's good. That's good. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize how dry my freaking mouth was starting to feel. I need to remember to drink water. Let me see. I lost my page. I keep losing it. I found it. Okay. I didn't mean to laugh that loud. Oopsie. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Oh my goodness. I'm really glad that these put estimated times. Because I was about to start reading a story that was going to take like 2 hours. Let's not do that. Yeah. My mouth would be hella dry if I did that. That's not the plan here. That's not the plan. Plan. Grab you. Okay. This story is called A Shattered Life. Oh my gosh. I know my microphone picked that up. No. Anyways, we'll pretend that didn't happen. I give you a brush. And we just pretend that never happened. Okay. Yosh. I don't know when you're going to read this, but I can tell you when it started. I was out for a walk alone in the woods when the entity came for me. It was beyond a blur. It was, for lack of a better term, absence of meaning. Where it hid, there were no trees. Where it crept closer, there was no grass. To the arc it leapt at me, there was no breeze of motion. There was no air at all. As it struck, I felt the distant sensation of claws puncturing me somewhere unseen, somewhere I'd never felt before. My hands and arms and legs and torso seemed fine, and I wasn't bleeding, but I knew I'd been injured somehow. As I fearfully ran back home, I could tell that I was less. I was vaguely tired, and it was hard to focus at times. The solution at that early stage was easy. A big cup of coffee helped me feel normal again. a while, that subtle drain in my spirit became lost in the ebb and flow of caffeine in my system. You could say my life began that week, actually, because that was when I met Mar. She and I got along great, though, to be honest, I'm pretty sure I fell in love with her over the phone before we ever met. It was almost as if the strong emotions of that first week made the entity fight back. It was still with me, latched onto some invisible part of my being. The first few incidents were minor, and I hardly worried about them. The color of a neighbor's car changed from dark blue. Okay. I was trying to avoid the motorcycle getting picked up. How dare you have a motorcycle outside my window? Anyways, a few incidents were minor, and I hardly worried about them. The color of a neighbor's car changed from dark blue to black one morning, and I stared at it before, shaking my head and shrugging off the difference. 2 days later, at work, a coworker's name changed from Fred to Dan. I carefully asked around, and everyone said his name has always been Dan. I figured I'd just been mistaken. Then, as ridiculous as it sounds, I was peeing in my bathroom at home when I suddenly found myself at a random street. I was still in my pajamas, pants down, and urinating, but now in a full view of a dozen people at a bus stop. Horrified, I pulled up my clothes and ran before someone called the cops. I did manage to get home, but the experience forced me to admit that I was still in danger. The entity was doing something to me, and I didn't understand how to fight back. Mar showed up that evening, but she had her own key. Hey, I asked her in confusion, how did you get a key? She just laughed. You're cute. Are you sure you're okay with this? She opened a door and entered a room full of boxes. I know living together is a big step, especially when we've been only dating 3 months. Living together, I literally just met her the week before. Thing was, my mother had always called me a smart cookie for a reason. I knew when to shut my gap. Instead of causing a scene, I told her everything was fine. And then I went straight to my room and began investigating. My things were just as I left them, with no sign of a 3-month gap in habitation. But I did find something out of the ordinary. The date. I shivered aggressively as I processed the truth. The entity had eaten 3 months of my life. What the hell was I facing? What kind of creature could consume pieces of one's soul like that? I'd missed the most exciting part of a new relationship, and I would never understand any shared stories or in-jokes from that period. Something absurdly precious had been taken from me, and I was furious. That fury helped suppress the entity. I never embedded alcohol. I drank coffee religiously. I checked the date every time I woke up. For 3 years, I managed to live each social fact here and there, someone's job, how many kids they had, that sort of thing. The layout of nearby streets, the time my favorite television show aired, the kind of thing. Always those changes reminded me the creature still had its claws sunk into my spirit. Not once in 3 years did I ever let myself zone out. One day, I grew careless. I let myself get ready into the season finale of my favorite show. It was gripping, a fantastic story, right at the height of the action. A young boy came up to my lawn. A young boy came up to my lounger and shook my arm. Surprised, I asked, "Who are you? How did you get here?" He laughed and smiled brightly. "Silly daddy." My heart sank to my chest. I knew immediately what had happened. After a few asked questions, I discovered that he was 2 years old and he was my son. The agony, the heartache filling my chest was nearly unbearable. Not only had I missed the birth of my son, I would never see or know the first years of his life. Mar and I had obviously gotten married and started a family in the time I'd lost, and I had no idea the joys or pains those years contained. It was snowing outside. Holding my son in my lap, I sat, watched the flakes fall outside. What kind of life was this going to be if slips in concentration could cost me years? I had to get help. The church had no idea what to do. The priest didn't believe me and told me I had a health issue rather than some sort of possession. The doctors didn't have a clue. Nothing showed up on all their scans and tests, but they happily took my money in return for nothing. By the time I ran out of options, I decided to tell Mar. There was no way to know what this all looked like from her side. What was I like when I wasn't there? Did I still take her son to school? Did I still do my job? Clearly, I did, because she seemed to be none the wiser. Still, I had a horrible feeling. Something must have been missing in her life when I wasn't actually home inside my own head. But the night I set up a nice dinner in preparation. Why did I say it like that? But the night I set up a nice dinner in preparation, she arrived not by unlocking the front door, but by knocking on it. I answered and found she was in a nice dress. She was happily surprised by the settings on the table. A fancy dinner for a second date. I knew you were sweet on me. Thank the Lord, I knew when to keep my mouth shut. If I'd gone on about being married and having a son, she might have run for the hills. Instead, I took her coat and sat down for a second date. Through carefully crafted questions, I managed to deduce the truth. This really was our second date. She saw relief and happiness in me, but interrupted them as dating jitters. Interpreted. She saw relief and happiness in me, but interpreted that as dating jitters. I was just excited to realize that the entity wasn't necessarily eating whole portions of my life. The symptoms, as I was beginning to understand them, were more like consequences of a shattered soul. The creature had wounded me, broken me into pieces. Perhaps I was to live my life out of order, but at least I would actually get to live it. And so it went for a few years from my perspective, while minor changes in politics or geography would happen daily. Major shifts in just shut up and listened, making sure to get the lay of the land before doing anything to avoid making mistakes. On the farthest flung leap yet, I met my 6-year-old grandson, and I asked him what he wanted to be when he grew up. He said, writer. I told him that was a fine idea. Then I was back in the month or two of my relationship with Mar. Oh no, I'm getting hiccups. Okay. Then I was back in month or two of my relationship with Mar, and I had the best night with her on the riverfront. When I say the best, I mean the best, knowing how special she would become to me. I asked her to move in. I got to live through what I'd missed the first go around, and I came to understand that I was never mentally absent. I would always be there. Eventually, we were moving our books in. We were moving our boxes in. She stopped for a moment and said she marveled at my great love, as if I'd known her for a lifetime and never doubted she was the one. That was the first time I truly laughed freely and wholeheartedly since the entity had wounded me. She was right about my love for her, but for exactly the reason she considered a silly romantic analogy. I had known her my whole life, and I'd come to terms with my situation and found peace with it. It wasn't so bad to have sneak peeks at all the best parts ahead. But of course, I wouldn't be writing this if it hadn't gotten worse. The entity was still with me. It had not wounded me and departed like I wanted to believe. The closest I can describe my growing understanding was that the creature was burrowing deeper into my psyche, fracturing it into smaller pieces. Instead of months between major shifts, I began only having weeks. Once I noticed that trend, I feared my ultimate fate would be to jump between times of my life, heartbeat by heartbeat, forever confused, forever lost. Only an instant in time meant I would never be able to speak with anyone else, never be able to hold a conversation, never express or receive love. As the true depth of that fear came upon me, I sat at an older version of me and watched the snow falling outside. That was the one constant in my life. The weather didn't care who I was or what pains I had to face. Nature was always there. The falling snow was always like a little hook that kept me in a place. The pure emotional peace it brought me was like a penance on my mental wounds, and I never yet shifted while watching the pattern of falling white and thinking of the times I'd gone sledding or built a snow fort as a child. A teenager touched my arm. Grandpa. It startled me out of my thoughts, so I was less careful than usual. Who are you? He half grinned, as if not sure whether I was joking, handing me a stack of papers. He said, "This is my first attempt at a novel. Would you read it and tell me what you think?" Of course, pursuing that dream of being a writer, I see. He burned bright red, trying to, anyway. All right, run off. I'll read this right now. The words were blurry and annoyed. I looked for glasses I probably had, for reading and being old was terrible, and I wanted to leap back into a younger year. in a sweater bucket and began leafing through our buttered in and out of the living room. Still beautiful, but I had to focus. I didn't know how much time I would have there. Let's get dragon. It seems that we had relatives over. Was it Christmas? A pair of adults and a couple kids I didn't recognize dropped through the hallway, and I saw my son, now adult, walk by with his wife on the way out the door as a group of the extended family began sledding outside. Finally, I finished reading the story, and I called out for my grandson. He rushed down the stairs and into the living room. How was it? Well, it's terrible, I told him truthfully, but it's terrible for all the right reasons. You're still a young man, so your characters behave like young people, but the structure of the story itself is very solid. I paused. I didn't expect it to turn out to be a horror story. He nodded. It's a reflection of the times. Expectations for the future are dismal, not hopeful like they used to be. You're far too young to be aware like that, I told him. And an idea occurred to me. If you're into horror, do you know anything about strange creatures? Sure, I read everything I can. I love it. Warily, I scanned the entrances to the living room. Everyone was busy outside. For the first time, I opened up to someone in my life about what I was experiencing. In hushed tones, I told him about my fragmented consciousness. For a teenager, he took it well. You're serious? Yes. He donned the determined look of a grown man accepting a quest. I'll look into it. See what I can find out. You should start writing down everything you experience. Build some data. Maybe we can map your psychic wound. Wow, sounds like a plan. I was surprised. That made sense, and I hadn't expected him to have a serious response. But how will I get all the notes in one place? Let's come up with somewhere for you to leave them, he said, frowning with thought. Then I'll get them, and we can trace the path you're taking through your own life. See if there's a pattern. For the first time since the situation had gotten worse, I felt hope again. How about under the stairs? Nobody ever goes under there. Sure. He turned and left the living room. I peered after him. I heard him banging around near the stairs. Finally, he returned with the box, laid it on the carpet, and opened it to reveal a bursting stack of papers. He exclaimed, "Holy crap!" But of course, being a teenager, he didn't really say crap. Taken aback, I blinked rapidly, forgiving his cussing because of the shock. Did I write these? He looked up at me in wonder. Yeah, or you will. You still have to write them and get them under the stairs after this. He gazed back down the papers and covered the box. So you probably should see what they say. That could get weird. That much I understood. He gulped. There are like 50 boxes under here, all filled up like this. Deciphering these will take a very long time. His tone dropped deadly serious. But I will save you, Grandpa, because I don't think anyone else can. Tears flowed down my cheeks then, and I couldn't help but sob once or twice. I hadn't realized how lonely I'd become in my shifting prison of awareness until I finally had someone who understood. Thank you so much. And then I was young again, and at work on a random Tuesday. Once the sadness and relief faded, anger and determination weeks became days and then hours. I wrote every single spare moment about when and where I thought I was. I put them under the stairs out of order. My first box was actually the 13th, and my last box was the first. Once I had over 50 boxes written from my perspective, and once my shifting became a matter of minutes, I knew it was up to my grandson to take it from there. I put my head down and stopped looking. I couldn't stand the river of changing awareness any longer. Names and places and dates and jobs and colors and people were all wrong and different. I'd never been older. I sat watching the snow fall, a man of at least 30 that I vaguely recognized into the room. Come on, I think I finally figured it out. I was so frail, and moving was so painful. Are you him? Are you my grandson? Yes. He took me to a room filled with strange equipment and sat me in a rubber chair facing a large mirror, twice the height of a man. The pattern finally revealed itself. How long have you worked on this? I asked him. I gasped. Tell me you didn't miss your life like I'm missing yours. His expression was both stone and furiously resolute. It'll be worth it. He brought 2 thin metal rods close to my arm and then nodded at the mirror. Look, this shock is perfectly calibrated. The electric zap from his device was startling, but not painful. In the mirror, I saw a rapid arcing silhouette appear above my head and shoulder. The electricity moved through the creature like a wave, briefly revealing the terrible nature of what was happening to me. A bulging leech-like mouth was wrapped around the back of my head, coming down to my eyebrows and touching each ear. And its slug-like body ran over my shoulder and into my very soul. It was a parasite, and it was feeding on my mind. My now adult grandson held my head as I looked, as I took in the horror. After a moment, he asked, removing it is going to hurt very badly. Are you up for this? Fearful, I asked, is Mar here? His face softened. No, not for a few years now. I could tell from his reaction what had happened, but I didn't want it to be true. How? We have this conversation a lot, he responded. Are you sure you want to know? It never makes you feel better. Tears brimmed in my eyes. Then I don't care if it hurts or if I die. I don't want to stay this time where she's not alive. He made a sympathetic noise of understanding and then returned to his machines, took several wires, buoys, and other bits of technology to my limbs and forehead. While he did so, he talked. I've worked for 2 decades to figure this out, and I've had a ton of help from other researchers of the occult. This parasite doesn't technically exist in our plane. It's one of the lesser spawns of, and it feeds on the plexus of mind, soul, and quantum consciousness and reality. When details like names and colors of objects changed, you weren't going crazy. The webs of your existence was losing strands as the creature ate its way through you. I didn't fully understand. I looked up in confusion as he placed a circlet of electronics like a crown on my head, an exact line where the parasite's mouth had ringed me. What's... Hi. He paused. His work grew pale. I forget that you wouldn't know. You're lucky, believe me. After a deep breath, he began moving again and placed his fingers near a few switches. Ready? This is carefully do to make your nervous system extremely unappetizing to the parasite, but it's basically electroshock therapy. I could see Mars smile, even though she was dead. It'd been minutes with her. I'd been with her moments ago. Do it. The click of a switch echoed in my ears, and I almost laughed at how mild the electricity was. It didn't feel like anything, at least at first. Then I saw the mirror shaking, and my body within that image convulsing. Oh no, it did hurt. Nothing had ever been more painful. It was just so excruciating that my mind hadn't been able to immediately process it. As my vision shook and fire burned in every nerve of my body, I could see the reflected trembling of light silhouette of the parasite on my head. It writhed in agony equal to mine. It had claws, 6 clawed lizard-like limbs under its leech-like body, and it cut into me in an attempt to stay latched on. Electricity made my memories flare. Mahar's smile was foremost, lit brightly in front of a warm fire, like the snow fell past the window behind her. The edges of that memory began to light up, and I realized that my life was one continuous stretch of experience. It was only the awareness that had been fragmented by that feasting evil on my back. I never managed to be there for the birth of my son. I jumped around it a dozen times, but I never actually lived it. For the first time, I got to hold Mars' hand and be there for her. No, no. That moment shifted me seamlessly into holding her hand as she lay in a hospital bed for a very different reason. Not this, God, why? It was so merciless to make me remember this. I broke down in tears as nurses rushed into the room. I didn't want to know. I didn't want to experience. I'd seen all the good parts, but I hadn't wanted the worst part, the inevitable end that would all one day face. It wasn't worth it. It was tainted. All that joy given back 10,000-fold as pain. The fire in my body and my brain surged to sheer white torture, and I screamed. My scream faded into a surprised shout as the machines connected electricity and cheer faded away. Snow was no longer falling around my life. I was out of the woods on a bright summer day. Oh God. I turned to see the creature approaching me. It was the same absence of meaning, the same blank in reality. It crept forward, just like before, but this time it hissed and turned away. I stood, astounded at being young again and freed from the parasite. My grandson had actually done it. He'd made me an unappetizing meal, so the predator of mind and soul had moved on to search for a different snack. I returned home in a daze, and while I was sitting there processing all that had happened, the phone rang. I looked at it in awe and sadness. I knew who it was. It was Marjorie, calling for the first time for some trivial reason she admitted 30 years later was made up just to talk to me. But all that I could see was her laying in the hospital bed dying. It was going to end in unspeakable pain and loneliness. I would become an old man left to sit by myself in an empty house. His soulmate gone long before him. At the end of it all, the only thing I would have left sitting and watching the falling snow. But now, thanks to my grandson, I would also have my memories. It would be a wild is the story. A shattered life. Although it sounds a little bit like Alzheimer's rather than a supernatural being, in my opinion. I like it. I like it a lot. How far to school? Welcome in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Time really is going by pretty quickly, to be fair. We're leaping through space and time. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Should we do one more story? One more story. Yes. Gosh, gosh. I think so far this one has been my favorite out of the creepypastas. Normally, I just read Pokemon creepypastas. I found. Let's try Mr. Wide Mouth. Some cryptid. Some cryptid. Here's making noise. Oh. Okay. I wanted to have like rain sounds playing in the background, but apparently, I don't know why, but I got a copyright claim, which is really funny because it's the sound of rain. I feel like that's toxic, very toxic. No. Anyway, the creepypasta, Mr. Wide Mouth. ASMR, yes. Yes. Okay. During my childhood, my family was like a drop of water in a vast river, never remaining in one location for long. We settled on Rhode Island when I was 8, and there would remain until I went to college in Colorado Springs. Most of my memories are rooted in Rhode Island, but there are fragments in the attic of my brain which belong to the various homes we had lived in when I was much younger. Most of these memories are unclear and pointless, chasing after another boy in the backyard of a house in North Carolina. so and so on. But there is one set of memories which remain clear as glass, as though they were just made yesterday. I often wonder whether these memories are simply lucid dreams produced by long sickness. I experience that way, but in my heart, I know they are real. You a good boy? Are you a good boy? Can you tell me if you're a good boy or not? I am living in a house just outside the bustling metropolis of New Vineyard, population 643. It was a large structure, especially for a family of 3. There were a number of rooms that I didn't see in the 5 months we resided there. In some ways, it was a waste of space, but it was the only house on the market at the time, at least within an hour's commute to my father's place of work. The day after my 5th birthday, attended by my parents alone, I came down with a fever. The doctor said I had mono, which meant no rough play or more fever, at least another 3 weeks. It was horrible. Timing to be bedridden. We're in the process of packing our things to move to Pennsylvania, and most of my things are already packed away in boxes. Leaving my room barren, my mother brought me ginger ale and books several times a day, and these served the functions of being my primary form of entertainment for the next few weeks. Boredom always loomed just around the corner, waiting to rear its ugly head and compound my misery. I didn't recall exactly how I met Mr. Widemouth. I think it was about a week after I was diagnosed with mono. My first memory of the small creature was asking him if he had a name. He told me to call him Mr. Widemouth because his mouth was large. In fact, everything about him was large in comparison to his body. His head, his eyes, his crooked ears, but his mouth was by far the largest. It looked like some kind of Furby, I said as he flipped through one of my books. Mr. Widemouth stopped and gave me a puzzled look. Furby? What's a Furby? He asked. I shrugged. You know, the toy. The little robot with big ears. You pet and feed them, almost like a real pet. Oh, Mr. Widemouth resumed his activity. You don't need one of those. They aren't the same as having a real friend. I remember Mr. Widemouth disappearing every time my mother stopped by to check in on me. I lay under your bed, he later explains. I don't want your parents to see me because I'm afraid they won't let us play anymore. He didn't do much. How dare my throat rumble? Okay. We didn't do much during those first few days. Mr. Widemouth had just looked at my books, fascinated by the stories and pictures they contained. The 3rd or 4th morning after I met him, he greeted me with a large smile on his face. I have a new game we can play, he said. We have to wait until after your mother comes to check on you because she can't see us play it. It's a secret game. After my mother delivered more books and soda at the usual time, Mr. Widemouth slipped out from under the bed and tugged my hand. question had no furniture or wallpaper. Its only distinguishing feature was a window opposite the doorway. Mr. Widemouth darted across the room and gave the window a firm push, flicking it open. He then beckoned to me to look at the ground below. We were on the second story of the house, but it was on a hill, and from this angle, the drop was much further than 2 stories due to the incline. I like to play pretend up here, Mr. Widemouth explained. I pretend that there's a soft trampoline below this window, and I jump. If you pretend hard enough, you bounce back like a feather. I want you to try. I was a 5-year-old with a fever, so only a hint of skepticism darted through my thoughts as I looked down and considered the possibility. It's a long drop, I said. But that's all part of the fun. It wouldn't be fun if it was only a short drop. If it were that way, you may as well just bounce on a real trampoline. I toyed with the idea, picturing myself falling through thin air only to bounce back on the window on something unseen by human eyes. But the realist in me prevailed. Maybe some other time, I said. I don't know if I have enough imagination. I could get hurt. Mr. Widemouth's face contorted into a snarl, but only for a moment. Anger gave way to disappointment. If you say so, he said. He spent the rest of the day under my bed, quiet as a mouse. The following morning, Mr. Widemouth arrived, holding a small box. I want to teach you how to juggle, he said. Here are some things you can use to practice before I start giving you lessons. I looked in the box. It was full of knives. My parents would kill me, I shouted, horrified that Mr. Widemouth had brought knives into my room, objects that my parents would never allow me to touch. I'll be spanked and grounded for a year. Mr. Widemouth frowned. It's fun to juggle with these. I want you to try it. I pushed the box away. I can't. I'll get in trouble. Knives aren't safe to just throw in the air. Mr. Widemouth's frown deepened into a scowl. Took the box of knives and slid under my bed, remaining there for the rest of the day. I began to wonder how often he was under me. I started having trouble sleeping after that. Mr. Widemouth often woke me up at night, saying he put a real trampoline under the window, a big one that I couldn't see in the dark. I always declined and tried to go back to sleep, but Mr. Widemouth persisted. Sometimes he stayed by my side until early in the morning, encouraging me to jump. He wasn't so fun to play with anymore. My mother came to me one morning and told me I had her permission to walk around outside. She thought the fresh air would be good for me, especially after being confined in my room for so long. Ecstatic, I put on my sneakers and trotted out to the back porch, yearning for the feeling of sun on my face. Mr. Widemouth years old, I was beginning to suspect that perhaps the creature's intentions were not to my benefit. Jesus Christ. Saber, thank you for the raid. How dare you? Smart bunch. Look here, Saber. How dare you? How dare you? I can't yell at you with my cane turned up this high. I'll fight you. Taking advantage of. Okay, toxic. I hope Persona went well. Toxic. Thank you for the follow. Anyway, at the end of November, nice. I still haven't played. I still haven't finished Persona 3. I have to go back to it. Anyways, finish my story. I was getting into it. Thank you for the raid again, Saber. Where was I? I would be in the back of I would be in the cab of that truck, sitting next to my father for the long drive to Pennsylvania. I considered telling Mr. Widemouth that I would be leaving, but even at 5 years old, I was beginning to suspect that perhaps the creature's intentions were not to my benefit, despite what he said otherwise. For this reason, I decided to keep my departure secret. My father and I were in the truck at 4 a.m. I was hoping to make it to Pennsylvania by lunchtime tomorrow with the help of an endless supply of coffee and a 6-pack of energy drinks. He seems more like a man who was about to go on a run for a marathon rather than one who was about to spend 2 days sitting still. Early enough for you? He asked. I nodded and placed my head against the window, hoping for some sleep before the sun came up. I felt my father's hand on my shoulder. This is the last of those, I promise. I know it's hard for you, as sick as you've been. Once Daddy gets promoted, he gets held down, and you can make friends. I opened my eyes as we backed out of the driveway. I saw Mr. Widemouth's silhouette in the mid-bedroom window. He stood motionless until the truck was about to turn onto the main road. He gave a pitiful little wave goodbye. Steak knife in hand, I didn't wave back. Years later, I returned to New Vineyard. The piece of land our house stood upon was empty except for the foundation, as the house burned down a few years after my family left. Out of curiosity, I followed the deer trail that Mr. Widemouth had shown me. Part of me expected him to jump out from behind a tree and scare the living bejesus out of me, but I felt that Mr. Widemouth was gone, somehow tied to the house that no longer existed. The trail ended at the New Vineyard Memorial Cemetery. I noticed that many of the tombstones belonged to children. Thank you for the rose. Just as we I'm just glad my dog didn't run across the apartment because her little nails are so loud. They're like tap 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 tap. But yes, yes. But I think that's where I'm gonna wrap up stream today. If we come back tomorrow for some video games, yes, play some video games. Let's see. Interesting. Go back to okay. I found it. I found it. Yes, 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 yes. Oh, I'm being nosy. Is my mouse loud when I click? I hope it isn't. I do. Part of me does kind of want to play some more Dead by Daylight too, but probably not this week because I want to start Dead Space or the Evil Within. I still haven't decided which one. No, 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 no. I think I want to do Dead Space first because the game is shorter. The game is shorter. And it might just be a better option to start first. It's also currently on sale, so why not? It's on sale along with Alien Isolation. So that might be a fun bundle to get a hold of. This, but I think next time we do, and I have some more stream, I'm gonna have some notices on the screen. And maybe do a reading a different time. Probably. Because I do want to play with like trigger stuff. I think it might be fun to do it on maybe Thursday. Maybe Thursday might be a fun day to do it. But either way, let me see. And then I can actually probably find Pop Rocks. Even if it's just maybe for my entertainment. Let's see. Gosh, yes, 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 yes. Da, da, da. Okay. I was gonna go ahead and start doing a raid, but I don't think I will, because I don't don't know how jarring that would be if we swap over from something quiet to not quiet. You know, those did it. Oh, no, that's cute. Ah, I want to make sure I don't bombard with crazy loud noises. I guess I could technically just lower my gain, huh? That would probably be smart.